Welcome to A Woman's Work, where we'll be exploring ways to go from surviving to thriving while balancing all the demands of womanhood in today's society. Hello, and welcome back to A Woman's Work. This is your host, Samara James, and I'm glad to be back with you this week, sharing from my heart to yours. Today, we're going to be talking about my new favorite topic, which is boundaries. There was a time in my life where I had no boundaries, and I actually considered that a virtue. I felt that since I was able to freely let people in and out of my physical and emotional space, I was being open and loving. Some of the attitudes that went along with that were that if there was a person who showed any interest in me whatsoever in being my friend or being a part of my life in any way, I was grateful. And I just let them participate in my life on their terms. I considered it a virtue that I was so open and easygoing, and I really hated to see other people do what I perceived as quickly judge others or shut them out. In my eyes, there was no greater form of cruelty. I was a master at seeing the best version of every person I came in contact with. And for that reason, I always had a lot of people who wanted to be around me and be my friend. But I never once asked myself if I wanted to be around them. It never occurred to me. I'll never forget an experience that I had with my first college roommate. And this has been a 16-year-long lesson for me. My first college roommate is still my best friend. We've been best friends for all these years. We did a lot together our freshman year, and there was something that she always did that irritated me to no end. She had this tendency to quickly judge others and make a decision about whether or not she wanted them in her space. And in my eyes, since I had no concept of boundaries, and was more focused on what people thought of me than what I thought of them, her choices seemed totally random, and I couldn't understand why she was so mean to people for no reason. It created a lot of irritation in me. I didn't realize it then, but my strong reaction to her choices was a sure sign that there was something off balance that needed to be addressed within me, which is usually the case when something another person chooses to do gets under our skin. So I'm irritated with my roommate because she's so mean in my eyes. Now, the truth is that she was and is an amazing person. She is so good at being a friend. And I haven't had anyone else in my life, besides my parents, be as intentional about showing me love and showing me what it means to be a good friend. I never considered at that time that there might be a good reason why someone so good at being a friend would reject some people. Now, fast forward 16 years, and we're still great friends. We share intimate details about our lives, and after a while, I had to take a step back and look at how, if we're so similar and we get along so well, why our lives were so different all these years later. Now, I looked at her life, her relationships. She has a wonderful, loving husband and a huge group of like-minded friends who show her so much support and love. Now, I step back and look at my own life, and although my intentions are pure, I'm going through a divorce and I'm surrounded by people, but I'm struggling to find any kind of real and consistent support. Now, we have so much in common, like I said. We're so good at being friends with each other. I had to look at our ways of relating really carefully to see what was making the difference in the quality of our relationships and even the quality of our lives. And then it hit me. She had better boundaries. I finally realized that being selective about who you let in and out of your physical and emotional space is not being mean, it's being smart. It ensures not only that you have the types of relationships that you actually want, but it leaves you available to share your energy with people who actually appreciate it, deserve it, and can actually benefit from it. It's kind of like locking the doors on your home. Being able to decide who you let in the door and who you keep outside the door keeps your space safe for you and everyone else who's in that intimate space with you. Now, if someone rings the doorbell, you can look out the peephole, evaluate who it is, and make a decision about whether or not you want them in your space. And anyone who deserves to be in your space will respect your decision about whether or not to let them in. It's a simple concept, but it was totally out of my reality. And I've learned through lots of meditation and introspection that the attitude of boundarylessness is taught. And it's a common thread in my family of origin. Looking back on my life, there were so many signs and symptoms I had that my boundaries were out of whack. I just had no idea that a lack of boundaries was what was causing my distress. So these are 5 things that were happening in my life that were signs that I needed to set better boundaries. And if you're dealing with any of these things, it could be a sign that you might need to set better boundaries as well. The first sign is that you feel emotionally and or physically tired all the time. You just never have enough energy to do the things you want to do. Now back to the house analogy. Imagine that instead of closing your door and locking it and waiting for someone to ring the bell and evaluating them before letting them in, you just had a big gaping hole at the front of your house. And anybody who walked by could see everything that's in there, all your goodies, and then no matter what you wanted, they could just come in and do as they pleased in your space. Imagine how much energy you would expend having to watch all your stuff, having to look at what they're doing. If they do something you don't like, the distress you've got to deal with. That's physically and emotionally exhausting. You have to physically follow this person around, and emotionally you're drained because all you're thinking about is what they might do next because you haven't vetted them. If you're feeling emotionally and physically tired all the time, it may be a sign that you have a big gaping hole at the entry of all your relationships, and you just let people see everything you have to offer and you let them in to do as they please, and you spend all your time entertaining them and giving them free reign and letting them decide whether to respect your space or not. You're exhausted from constantly cleaning up emotional messes and trying to put things back where they should be. This is exhausting. You kind of have that attitude when you're living this way that if it's not one thing, it's another, and you can't seem to get a grasp on things in your relationship long enough to gain a sense of peace. Another sign that you might need to set better boundaries is there's someone you hate. There's someone that you have contact with on a regular basis that you just can't stand. The thought of this person makes you anxious and sad, and you're constantly trying to figure out how to work around this person and accommodate them because you feel like you have to. One thing about learning about boundaries is there is nothing you have to do. Everything is a choice. So if there's someone in your life that you hate, it means that you haven't set the proper boundaries with this person. If you've protected your inner world properly, there's nothing that this person can do to bring you down or to irritate you. Another sign that you might need to set better boundaries is you're depressed. If you feel down all the time and frustrated that things are not as they should be in your life, and the feeling is persisting, you probably have a boundary problem. Now, it's one thing to run into some trouble and to take a step back and to feel sad for a moment and then to regroup. But if, like I said, the feeling is persisting, it probably has to do with your boundaries. You probably need to set better boundaries all through your life because the way you're feeling originates from a thought. Every feeling that we feel, good or bad, originates from something that we're thinking. And the things that we're thinking come from something that we've chosen to believe. Again, it's always a choice. The truth is, although it doesn't feel like it, we have complete control over what we're thinking. And so if we're thinking thoughts that make us depressed, we have the power to change those thoughts. Now, if we're allowing all types of things in our life because of our beliefs that make us feel depressed, then we've got to address that. Most of us have been on autopilot and have never even tried to monitor and alter our thoughts. We haven't even connected the the fact that our thoughts create our feelings. And it's a difficult thing to do if we're not used to it. But I can tell you it's 1,000 times more difficult if you haven't learned how to set boundaries in your relationships, because it requires energy. And if you're letting people have free reign in your space and you're not making choices about how people are existing in your space, you don't even have the emotional energy to begin to monitor and change your thinking. The fourth sign that you might need to set better boundaries is that you can't seem to reach your most important goals. There's something that you've said you'd accomplish, and for some reason you just can't seem to get it done. At every turn, there's an external or internal interruption that keeps taking priority over your dream. You can't find time to study for your exam because your boyfriend needs you to watch his kids. You can't finish writing that book because you don't trust anyone to watch your kids for you while you focus. It could be any number of things that you give as excuses for not reaching your goals. Now, the truth is, we're always choosing what we do with our time. And even if, back to the house analogy, we've only let people into our home that we want there, sometimes we may need to go into a room and close another door for a time in order to reach our goals. So even if you set general boundaries for who you let in and out of your life, within your internal group, you may need to set additional boundaries to make sure you're caring for yourself, because everyone benefits when you reach your goals. The fifth sign that you might need to set better boundaries is you're a flake. We've all had friends who have been flaky, and we've all been flakes ourselves. Now, if you have a weekend full of commitments and you just can't bring yourself to get up off the couch and go, if your calendar is full and just looking at it makes you feel tired and exhausts you, if you're not excited enough about anything you have to do to follow through, and sometimes you don't follow through, it means you haven't set good boundaries. Because good boundaries mean that you don't commit to anything or anyone that you're not excited about. That's how you live an exciting life. And so if you're just exhausted by what you've got to do, you might need to set better boundaries. You might need to examine the thoughts and beliefs that are convincing you that you need to commit to all the things that you've committed to. Again, take it back, sit down, and examine what you're thinking. So there's lots of attitudes. These are symptoms that you need to set better boundaries, but there's attitudes that contribute to the decision not to have boundaries. One huge attitude that contributes to having poor boundaries is believing that you shouldn't judge people. Now, the truth is, you shouldn't mistreat people, but you can't live without making judgments on people. In order to live the life that you want, it's a form of protection. You've got to look at someone and decide whether or not they're bringing into your life something that you desire. Another attitude that contributes to having poor boundaries is believing that everyone deserves a second chance. That's something that we're taught. That's a belief. We can decide at any moment that we don't want to give more than one chance. If we give someone an opportunity to be in our space and they do something that makes us feel a way that we don't want to feel anymore, we can choose not to give another chance, or we can choose to give another chance. It's a choice. Another attitude that contributes to having poor boundaries is believing that we should only focus on the good in every situation and every person. Now, this is a good quality to have once you've done the initial vetting of a person, once you've decided that you do want them in your life. Now, if they're still outside the door, you need to be, scrutinizing everything. You need to be looking at the whole picture. Another attitude that contributes to poor boundaries is believing that if you say no, you'll hurt someone's feelings. Now, that's actually a truth. That's just the way it is. You can't please everyone. If you're trying to please everyone, you're pleasing no one. And you're especially not pleasing yourself. And so expect that when you set boundaries and you make decisions about who you want in your life and how you want them in your life, that you're going to hurt some feelings. And you have to be okay with that. You have to love and respect yourself enough to be okay with that. Another attitude that contributes to poor boundaries is believing that if you refuse to do something that someone else really wants you to do, that you're mean. Let people call you mean. That's the reason why we have to grow up and let people call us names on the playground. Mean is a compliment to me now, coming from people that I've set a boundary with that needed to have that boundary set. It's not mean to refuse to do something that doesn't serve you or the people closest to you. Another attitude that contributes to poor boundaries is believing that most people have good intentions. Now, I do believe that this is true. But what's also true is that there are lots of people, a significant number of people, who don't have good intentions. And when we're deciding whether or not to let someone in our space, we really do have to stop and evaluate what their intentions are towards us. And even if their intentions are good in their eyes, we have to examine them to see if they match up with our intentions for ourselves. And if they do, then green light. If they don't, then we may need to take a step back and look at where we need to put up our fences with those people. Another attitude that contributes to poor boundaries is believing that you should be grateful when someone wants to give you their time or attention. And this comes from another underlying belief, believing that other people are more valuable than you are, or that their desires are more important than yours. Feeling grateful just because someone wants to give you their time or attention means that you aren't giving that time and attention to yourself. Now, you can feel grateful for the love and time and attention from the people that you've let in your life, but don't let it negate the time and attention that you deserve to receive from yourself. And that way, you won't feel needy. There won't be this sense of neediness when you're interacting with other people because you're confident that you are the best person to meet your physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Another attitude that contributes to poor boundaries is believing that sacrifice is the best way to show love. You can't give somebody something that you don't have. If you want to give quality love, you have to be receiving quality love, whether you're delivering that to yourself or whether you've just been smart about who you've let into your space to give that quality love to you. The best way to show love is to understand how to receive love. Now, all these attitudes we can begin to change when we take the time to sit and evaluate how we're feeling, whether or not any of those 5 signs of poor boundaries are present in our lives. And then examining our attitudes if we determine that there's an area in our life where we don't have proper boundaries. Some ways, once we've done that, to develop better boundaries is letting go of the need to be approved of by others. You're never going to be approved of by everyone. Now, the problem comes in if you don't approve of yourself. And also, in order to become the best version of ourselves, we do need to look at those that we've allowed into our space. We kind of do need their approval sometimes. We need to examine ourselves if they're bringing things to our attention and love. But other than that, you don't need to worry about the approval of anyone. Another way to develop better boundaries is make filling your own cup a top priority. You can't pour from an empty cup. Always check to see if your cup is full. And the way that you know that your cup is full is that you have a sense of peace and you have energy. Then you can pour into others. And once you've let go of the need to be approved of by others and you've learned how to fill your own cup, you've got to practice saying no because you're going to have to do it forever. It's never going to go away. There's always going to be people knocking on your door, the door of your boundaries that you don't want to let in and that you're going to have to say no to, and you're going to have to deal with the fallout. But the good thing about that is the more you say no, the easier it gets to say no. Because when you say no, what you're saying to yourself is yes. And it feels good to say yes to yourself. Now, once you've learned how to develop better boundaries, you've examined areas where you may need to improve, practice gratitude. Look at all the things that you've let inside of your physical and emotional space and feel excited about them through being thankful for them. Just take time to look at them and appreciate what they're bringing into your life. We all choose obligations in our lives. We get excited about things like, choosing a mate, having children, obtaining lots of material success, and all those things come with obligations. The way to get back to that original excitement and not be buried by the obligations that you've actually chosen is to practice gratitude on a daily basis. To go and say thank you for whatever these things are bringing into your life that you have to care for. I really hope this helped you all. I'm sure this will be a recurring topic on this show because it's so important. It's so important. It's really the foundation of, what it means to be happy and content in life, setting proper boundaries. If you have any questions or comments on the things that I've talked about today, if you want to discuss anything further, if you want to see a follow-up show, feel free to contact me at Samara, SIMARA .James, JAMES @gmail.com, and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. I look forward to seeing you next time on A Woman's Work. Have a great day.